Thank you and good afternoon. It's another Wednesday and it's the Ellen Carrington Show. Hump Day! Yeah! Coming to you from Pittsburgh, where the outdoors is feeling a little more today like October than mid-August. Think about that one for a moment. If you did notice a slight change on the show page, things have gone very well since I cut it back to 1 day a week from 2. And this was initially planned for only the summer months, but me having several other projects at hand with book writing, doing appearances, the upcoming Label as World show, along with my weekly book reviews and Authors on Show column, just to name a few things. Change had to be made somewhere. And doing this show once a week seems to fit much better. And if you haven't liked the Facebook page yet, come on over and join us at facebook.com/The Ellen Carrington Show, runs together. In addition to links posted from almost everything mentioned on the episodes, some occasional photos and human interest items are also featured. The page is open to any and all suggestions, provided they're kept reasonably clean. And if you'd like to be a guest or promote your work, you're certainly welcome to post your request on our Facebook page as well. And speaking of such episodes, a special weekend broadcast is coming once again from Tampa, Florida. This is being planned for early September, pending any changes, of course. And if everything continues to go well, I'll be posting some additional details on the page in upcoming weeks. But before I delve further into today's show, I'd like to send out humongous thanks to both Pro Wrestling Express and Big Time Wrestling for putting on amazing shows this past weekend. I understand turnouts for both events were quite reasonable, and for those who saw either or both shows, I hope you had excellent experiences. I'd like to think indie wrestling is the business's backbone, and certainly not an easy feat to boot, which is one reason I find it important to support all independent wrestling promotions and not just the famous and prominent ones. These men and women work hard to entertain their fans, and my hat is off to them every step of the way. So keep on bringing it, guys, because we love you for it. I mean, independent wrestling is a lot of fun, even though it doesn't pay well. But fall is on the horizon, and it's not unusual to think about last-minute traveling before the kids head back to school. And with that in mind, a writer on BuzzFeed.com discussed why they thought Pittsburgh is the greatest city on the planet, complete with 16 reasons. You want to check out that link at www.buzzfeed.com/ I'll spell this Z as in zebra, O-E, TSIRIS/18 reasons why Pittsburgh is the greatest city on D as in dog 5-6 B as in boy. If you missed that, I'll post it on the wall later. And another reason to love this area is the success of a young lady named Maria Jarosh, and excuse me if I mispronounced that, but she is from Baldwin, PA, and happened to make the cover of the recent People magazine, donning a 2-piece bright yellow bikini. Yeah, you gotta check that out. She's looking pretty good. She shared her story about losing more than 100 pounds and kept it off for 5 years. And it's a fantastic story if you didn't read it yet. And if you need some motivation to quote-unquote fall into shape, pun intended, this coming autumn, I highly recommend reading Maria's story because it is inspiring as she is beautiful. Congratulations, Maria, and may you have continued success on your journey. Good job. And while we're discussing strong and inspiring women, think about this for a moment. What would you do if you saw a man carrying what appeared to be a real gun heading toward a group of children? Aliquippa police said one woman ran such a person over with her car and may have stopped a robbery in the process. This incident, it took place on August 8th around 9 in the evening on the 2100 block of McMahon Street in Aliquippa. And what apparently happened was this woman spotted a 21-year-old named Cameron White armed with a gun and contacted police. But during that 911 call, she noticed the gunman was heading toward the two teenagers on bicycles. I didn't say if they were boys or girls, but they teenagers on bicycles. And she was afraid that White was going to shoot them. So what she did, she told them to leave the kids alone. But here comes the scary part. He proceeded to point the gun at the woman, prompting her to strike him down with her car. Tell you what, I wouldn't want to mess with this lady anytime soon. Not only did she stop a possible robbery from happening at a nearby Circle K, she was also not charged for running over the gunman. Now, I'm not saying it's great to take the law in your own hands, but you got to commend this woman for stopping something far worse from happening. You know, 2 kids could be alive today because this lady was clearly thinking, well, in this case with her gas pedal. But thank goodness nobody ended up, well, the gunman ended up hurt for obvious reasons. He was hit by the car, but no innocent lives were taken, so 1 out of 2 isn't bad. Okay, now that I'm finished bragging once again about Western Pennsylvania and some of its great people, let's talk about some writing-related items, starting with a site I found on my Facebook timeline late last week. And this is a site called writer.ly, and it's currently in beta mode. What writer.ly is, it's a marketplace connecting writers with the people they need to create and sell books. And some of the jobs offered include editing, proofreading, cover design, book formatting, PR/media help, social media, marketing, and web design, among other things. And if you're a writer and looking for some help, how writer.ly works is someone simply, posts a job describing work they need. And then freelancers who are on this site, they bid on those job offers. The job posters then choose people they like to work with based on price, portfolio reviews, or experience. And if you're a writer or freelancer and something like this piques your interest, check it out. Their website is www.writer.ly, and have a look around to see what's currently being offered. And as many of you already learned from a couple of previous episodes, I am in the process of possibly writing a biography about a now retired yet well-known wrestler in the near future. And if the negotiations on the proposed idea don't work out, I've considered going the route of either a tribute book or an unauthorized biography. What an unauthorized biography is, for those not, versed in the literary sense, this is basically one book written where the author did not receive permission from their subject to publish the biography, to put it in layman's terms. The critical key here is unauthorized biographies, you have to be very careful about what you write on them. I mean, you can't just put down anything defamatory as fact, or invade the subject's privacy, or print something that may violate copyright laws. So you got to be really careful here. And this is not something easy to do, considering all the information online that's easily available to all of us about celebrities or political figures or, people of that type. And there is one drawback. Not all that information is true or accurate. If you wish to go the unauthorized biography route, it's best to make sure all your legal grounds are first covered. On the other hand, if you're not that brave to dive in such a complicated project, a tribute book might be more up your option. But once again, nothing defamatory or copyright infringing, just to highlight a couple things. And I'm going to post a link to an article about unauthorized biography writing, along with other things mentioned today on our show. You can find them on the show wall here for a little while, and on our Facebook page. But we're going to talk about a couple authors for a minute. Crystal McCarrington and Joey Legend were past guests on the show. You can listen to their recent interview on the show archives on YouTube. And I am happy to pass along the word. They have signed with Solstice Publishing for another book, Fighting for Love. I'll read the book synopsis to you. Let me tell you, this is some hot stuff. I've been reading, managed to get around to reading it since I've got so much on my plate. Been wanting to get to it for a while, but finally got it going. But I'm going to read the synopsis to you anyway. For those of you who haven't gotten into this book yet, I suggest that you do, by the way. Quote, Jasmine got obsessed with a man, and now he's obsessed with her. Steamy nights, kisses, and rules being broken awaits them. She turned his whole world upside down, and now he's doing it to hers. In this free fall, can they survive each other's love? Gotta read the book to answer the questions. But yes, it is an erotica book, but it's dynamic and exciting too. And it's now on sale on Amazon for $1.99 for the Kindle version. And the recent price right now, of course, Amazon has a thing where they're cutting down prices on paperbacks here. But this one is $8.54. And I'm going to be writing a review in the upcoming weeks for my book blog. But in the meanwhile, grab a copy for a good read. I'm sure Crystal and Joe will appreciate it, and they'll love you for it. And all will be well, and you'll enjoy it. You'll love it. I guarantee it. And while we're on the topic of fighting and whatnot, I'd like to take a few moments to announce some upcoming shows by Pro Wrestling Express, also known as PWX. The Sean, quote, Shocker Evans Memorial Tournament will take place next Friday, August 23rd. And that's going to be followed by some other upcoming PWX shows, which will take place on September 7th, September 21st, October 5th, and October 19th. And all aforementioned events will be held at the PWX WrestlePlex, located on 2125 Beacon Street in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. Bell time for all shows is 7:30 p.m. and additional information can be found on the PWX website in upcoming weeks. And I am halfway finished with the fourth and last book of my Cruiserweight series, The Maryland Diaries. As of right now, the book is scheduled for release in its Kindle version sometime this fall. But I wanted to top off today's show by reading an excerpt to you. I'm going to have some fun with this. Let me pick a chapter. And actually, the chapter I chose is where Peter and Marilyn meet. And this takes place in 2011. And I'm going to read the excerpt from her diary. It talks about that. And it's dated late June 13th / early June 14th, 2011. I've had plenty of what I like to call Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong days since starting at console. But today started out as the worst thus far. When I say, quote, started, unquote, the day ended on a high note, which is why I'm still awake at 4:30 in the morning and plan to take a personal day from work tomorrow. Everything went downhill for the moment when I arrived at work. Janice was in a foul mood. I must have been the only person on whom she didn't unleash one of her fits. A wrestling show was in town, and I swear they drove poor Rodney and other arena security personnel insane. A freak thunderstorm came into Pittsburgh shortly before lunch, and we lost power. Try doing office work these days with zero electricity. Not going to happen. Duquesne Lights seemed to take their good old time once the storm passed, which made Janice even more difficult to contend with. I don't want to know what those poor guys in security went through before power was restored around 3 o'clock. Since we obviously couldn't have lunch, the majority of employees were ravenous once the lights came back on. Vending machine raid, ha ha! Tony and I ended up splitting pizza from a place across Fifth Avenue. Things were quiet for a while this afternoon, Janice's grouchiness aside, until I finished at 5. I walked to the parking lot alone today since Rodney was busy with security detail for tonight's event. Of all evenings, Little Putt-Putt didn't start at all. Little Putt-Putt, by the way, is Marilyn's car. She called it Little Putt-Putt. Not on the first, second, or even 5th try. Worse, when I went to call Joe to see if he could pick me up after his shift, since the buses are often crowded and it's almost impossible to get a cab during evening rush hour, and the auto club to pick up Little Putt-Putt, my cell phone was dead. I know God doesn't give us more than we can handle, but this whole day was ridiculous. Looking back, I think little Putt-Putt's latest trouble could have been a sign from God things were about to turn around for me. Before I headed to a nearby payphone, I lifted little Putt-Putt's hood to see if I could immediately spot the latest problem, though I'm no expert on cars, and tie a white cloth around it showing the disabled vehicle, which avoided little Putt-Putt being tagged and towed as an abandoned car by the city, and me stuck with abominable charges. Excuse me. I never made it to a phone, but almost had the life scared out of me, at first. When I looked up from under the car hood, a man was standing on its other side. I wasn't sure what to think since I heard the rescue rapist is still at large. He approaches unsuspecting women offered to help with some kind of problem, but instead takes them to isolated areas where they are raped. Janice warned us about the guy, but I never thought much about it since, with the exception of tonight, Rodney always accompanied me to and from the parking lot. Well, this man wasn't a rescue rapist, but a genuine good Samaritan. He was a bit heavy-set with short dark hair, a few gray strands blended in, a welcoming smile, and perhaps the most intense brown eyes I ever seen. He wasn't terribly tall, but certainly taller than I am. Judging from the way he was dressed, I presume he came to Pittsburgh for business. He introduced himself as Peter and wondered if I had car trouble. I laughed and said little Putt-Putt dying was common. Wow, you can tell I have little experience with men. Ha ha. Anyway, next thing I knew, Peter had his suit jacket off and fiddled under the hood. I don't know what he did, but little Putt-Putt turned over on the first try. Something had never happened the entire time I've owned that crazy car. The most amusing part was when Rodney came outside to the lot on his break and spotted me talking to Peter. He wanted to know if I failed to tell him something after Peter left from the Marriott to change clothes. When I asked what he meant, Rodney wondered why I never told him I knew P class. Of course, I had no clue what he meant. I forgot you don't follow wrestling, Rodney said before he filled me in on who Peter really was, his career with Global Wrestling and International, and now he worked backstage as a producer for most of International shows. You don't have to worry about Pete, Marilyn. He seems like a nice guy, at least the few times I've talked to him. Even though little Putt-Putt started, I didn't get home until about an hour ago. Rodney invited me to hang out with him during the live from, even though he had to work security most of the evening. Rodney also told me during one of the commercial breaks he overheard Peter got in some kind of trouble for barely returning on time from the Marriott. Just what I needed to hear. The poor man reprimanded for being kind enough to help me with my car. Surely Peter's bosses didn't expect him to show up in a dirty, greasy suit. If I didn't feel guilty before, I certainly did after Rodney told me what happened. He managed to drag Peter from backstage after the show and came over to where I was sitting. Peter looked surprised that I was still at the arena. Dummy me. I blurted an apology about getting in trouble for his running late because of my car problems. Peter smiled and said no apology was necessary before he asked me to dinner. 11:30 was rather late for a meal, but I'd eaten nothing since the late lunch with Tony. Long story short, I've rambled long enough as it is. We had dinner at the Marriott and talked for a long time, at least between fans asking Peter for pictures and autographs. Seriously, I wouldn't want his job. When the restaurant lounge closed at 2 a.m., he walked me to where little Putt-Putt was still parked. We exchanged phone numbers and email addresses before parting ways. I'm now exhausted, but need to set the alarm so I can call Janice and let her know I'm taking a personal day. I probably won't hear from Peter again. He likely meets girls every night. But tonight had a memorable ending to what started as a horrible day. Good night/morning. Love, Marilyn. Now you know how Donovan's parents met. Isn't that something? But on a side note, I'm halfway through finishing this book, as I mentioned before, and we're looking at, a release sometime, at least a Kindle version in October. I don't know if there's going to be a paperback on this or not. I'd like there to be. But Is this going to be the fourth and last book of the Cruiserweight series? I'm going to be moving on to other things once I'm finished with this. And I've been working on it the last couple of days, but I definitely wanted to share the chapter with all of you about how Peter and Marilyn met, and maybe on another show about how Donovan came along. You remember Donovan, of course, from Class Act, and of course he's in this book. Actually, he's the one who found the diaries, and he's reading them. But we have a few minutes left, and I'd like to take the time to thank you all for tuning in once again. And the next show, pending any changes, of course, is scheduled for next Wednesday, which is August 21st. I look forward to having all of you tune in to listen. Hopefully we'll have some good topics to know. Maybe we'll have a guest drop in. I don't know. We'll have to look and see what's going on. But in any case, be safe, have an enjoyable week, and enjoy the Steeler game on Monday night. And take care.